The writers of the ancient Psalms spoke with a raw, emotional intensity that feels foreign to many today. In its place, we often find a disconnected reality, a version of faith that feels more like a cold ember than a burning fire. Many believers find themselves in a strange cycle. They maintain the habits of reading and prayer, yet their spiritual lives feel entirely static, as if they are running a motor that isn't connected to any wheels. This often manifests as a transactional relationship. Faith is measured by the balance in a bank account, the keys to a new house, or the grade on a final exam. If the material output is high, the faith is assumed to be working. Others simply drift into the background. They carry the weight of unaddressed choices, or a slow creeping apathy that eventually pushes God to the absolute periphery of their daily lives. It raises a difficult question. Why does the faith we read about in Scripture look so different from the faith we actually live? Agreeing with a set of theological facts is a starting point, but it rarely moves the needle. Without something to drive it forward, faith remains a spectator sport, something we observe rather than something we inhabit. To find what drives that transition, we have to look at a group of people who should have been permanently disqualified from service, the descendants of a man named Korah. Korah led a massive rebellion against Moses. It was a direct defiance of the order God established for his people. The judgment was absolute and physical. The ground literally opened up, swallowing the leaders of the rebellion and their families whole. Those who stayed near Korah's tents were caught in the same collapse. In an instant, a significant portion of the community was dragged into the depths. By any standard of justice, the name Korah should have ended right there, buried in the desert and scrubbed from history. History often assumes generational guilt. We believe a severe crime leaves a permanent stain on the family name. For Korah's surviving children, this was a life sentence, marked by a failure they didn't commit but couldn't escape. Culturally and politically, there was no path forward for them. They were the last people anyone would expect to see standing in a position of honor or holy service. We usually define people by their history. When that history includes a rebellion of this scale, the idea of a comeback isn't just unlikely, it's impossible. But history shows something different. Generations later, Korah's descendants appear as elite gatekeepers, chief musicians, and warriors guarding the temple. While the rebellion met a swift end, God's mercy extended to the children who remained. He didn't just let them survive, he brought them to the very center of his presence. This changed why they served. They didn't guard the gates out of mere religious habit. They stood as the spared, knowing what they escaped from. Realizing the depth of a disaster you've survived changes your perspective. It turns a routine job into a lifelong debt of gratitude, and that gratitude is what finally fuels active service. If your faith feels like it's standing still, the answer isn't to force yourself to perform more religious chores. You have to look at your own history with honesty and ask, knowing my own flaws and the mistakes I've made, how has God actually treated me? Being aware of your own brokenness while experiencing rescue isn't a side effect of faith. It is the prerequisite for being sent out. When you understand the scale of the debt that has been cleared, the weight of your past stops being a source of shame and starts being the reason you move forward. God does not rescue people just to leave them waiting on the sidelines. You are looking at the same invitation the sons of Korah accepted, to take a history of failure and trade it for an active mission. For them, that meant guarding the sanctuary and leading others in songs of praise. For you, it means taking your story of rescue and using it to reach others who are still where you used to be. The moment you stop watching from the sidelines and start participating in that work, your faith stops being a concept and starts being a life.